Hi everybody, in this episode, Rob talks to me about the difference between Iceberg and Lifecycle and Neuron and Uzair and X and what do they all mean, how do they all fit together. We dig deep into where that all came from, how it all pieces together and where it's going in the future. Hope you enjoy.
So on this episode, I sit down with Mark and we're going to discuss around Lifecycle, Iceberg, and which one means which. Obviously, with the development of a few more things that Mark we're going to talk about today, for listeners out there, anyone who knows us as maybe the Lifecycle group or the Iceberg group or whatever part that might cover, this episode is more about what is Iceberg and why are we sort of moving back to the Iceberg brand with the importance of what we've got coming up.
Yeah.
So on a previous episode, we talked about Lifecycle 4 and the updates that Lifecycle 4 has brought into the industry. And you talked about Uzair as one of those products in that. So if anyone's listening out there, go and check that episode out so that covers it. So on that one though, when we started to build out Uzair, obviously Uzair wasn't called Uzair at the time because that's what we bought into it. And originally, obviously, we're Iceberg and we bought out Lifecycle. So what made you go down the route of going, right, we're not going to just do AI in Lifecycle. We're actually going to produce an actual product called Uzair that's going to it's going to sit in Lifecycle as an assistant for Lifecycle users.
Yeah, I think it's just clarity for users that, think of it like Safari inside your iPhone. If everything was just called iPhone, how would you how would you explain that? You couldn't release a new function in Safari without just confusing people. Lifecycle does lots of things on its own anyway, just like the iPhone does lots of things on its own as standard, but you can add things to it, it can be enhanced, and Uzair is a way of doing that. Originally, our company was just called Iceberg Digital. If you go all the way back to 2009 when it was founded, it was just called Iceberg Digital. And we had, a magazine system that we used to give people, but that magazine system never had a name or anything. We were just Iceberg Digital. When we built Lifecycle, some 8 years later or 7 years later, or the first versions of Lifecycle, we started to realize like the roadmap was one whereby several products were going to be required here. Whether we did them or whether someone else in the industry did them, for the future that we saw, lots of things needed to be connected. Your website would need to work differently to the way it does at the moment, and someone in the world is going to need to build a website like that. It could be someone else, it could be us. Well, the CRM system is going to need to work differently, and again, it could be us, it could be somebody else. The way that agents are trained and some of the information and learnings that they've got access to is going to need to change, and it could be us, it could be somebody else. And so Lifecycle was probably the first step for us in creating a product. I mean, it had a predecessor called Fragra, but that particular software was the first step for us, whereby we sort of, Iceberg was the brand of the company, and Lifecycle became the brand of a product. And the reason that Lifecycle has sort of overtaken Iceberg in terms of how much we talk about it was because it was such a big leap for people to understand that they could actually use Lifecycle as their full CRM system, that we needed to focus purely on the message about what is Lifecycle, how does it work. Now that that's established, we have other products that we have now spent time building, and we can start to move back to this company's Iceberg. And at Iceberg, you can get one or all of these products.
So effectively, we've got like Iceberg, Lifecycle, Uzair, and estate agency X as a certain branding.
And Neuron.
Yeah, so yeah, so obviously in going down the route of Uzair, and you're talking about websites. Because remember we had a conversation about websites years ago. I remember you sitting down and saying, but you needed certain things to happen before you could actually officially build an AI website. So this is obviously, we've had the launch of Lifecycle 4 and Neuron, so it's already out there, but people will start to see it. And so for anyone who maybe have not seen it yet, like that other product out there, Neuron. What's Neuron?
So Neuron is AI websites, and I think already people are a bit exhausted with this AI term.
Yeah.
You know, I know when I see it, I just kind of switch off, to be honest. So let's forget that for a minute. Let's just forget the AI bit. There's enough website companies out there already that service the estate agency industry. It doesn't need another one. So what's the point? And as you say, for us, it goes all the way back to when we first started to go down this road of building software for estate agents that would help them to work smarter. And I don't say work smarter in a derogatory way. I'm just talking about my own learnings on my own entrepreneurial journey with my own business, and some of the things that I learned that just made my life incredibly much easier to go from having okay or struggling businesses to building 8-figure businesses, was small tweaks that, wow, that's mad. I can have something that will tell me how to make the most productive 10 phone calls today, instead of like, you know, phoning 100 people and I feel like I've really worked hard, but I got fuck all out of it at the end. So when we looked at how to get things working smarter for people, when we looked at the website side of things, the majority of estate agents have got a similar setup going on their website. They've got maybe a banner at the top, which has either got on it or under it a search bar. And then under that, there's some kind of gumph, right? And they need to kind of cover all bases, because if they're a full service estate agency, then they need to appeal to landlords and tenants and buyers and sellers. I mean, primarily sellers and landlords, right? And of those two, probably depends on whether they're 60% sales or 60% lettings, but you know, they'll be the two that they mainly want to appeal to. Although weirdly, the primary thing on their website is something for buyers and tenants, right? But that's expected. That's what is normal on an estate agency website, to see a property search. So therefore, we kind of have to do that. Otherwise, it's a bad user experience. And then under that, we can try and get across as much information as we possibly can. Then we can add extra pages, and then we can add even more pages, and on and on and on and on it goes. And I think most estate agents would agree that, like, primarily they accept that their website isn't a place that people go to search for property. It's more a place that people go to do research on them before they decide whether to get them out for evaluation. So the way that's done currently, because of the style of the website, is that a seller probably lands there, they're presented with a property search, they run a property search, they check out the type of properties this person's got on the market, and they kind of decide from there, which is kind of crazy, because you could almost say, like, if I've been really successful, I've sold all the properties that are like yours, and you're not going to find them on my website. So anyway, when we looked at websites, we just thought to ourselves, well, already, this is, you know, some sort of 7 years ago, websites had started moving down the road of being dynamic in their content, in the sense that whilst you don't realize it, if you take Netflix as an example, your results on Netflix are different to my results on Netflix based on what you've looked at previously. It's pretty normal for people to accept that now, but there was a point in time where people were kind of thought that was amazing. So a website for an estate agency should change depending on the person that hits the website. I don't need a buyer search at the top if I'm looking to sell. I need testimonials, or maybe something that is going to impress a seller. And then depending on where that seller is on their journey, have they ever done an instant valuation with us? Have they ever done a face-to-face valuation with us? Have they got a 3-bedroom house? Have they got a flat? Have they got a 5-bedroom house? Do they live on the Firs estate? Do they live in here? All of that content can change, but it can't change unless it knows that content before they hit the website. So that takes us all the way back then to, right, we're going to have to build a Lifecycle then, aren't we? We're going to have to build a system that has data structured in a certain way that many estate agents will wonder why they even bothered doing this in the first place. And then lo and behold, one day we'll be able to produce a product whereby this website is mental. Like you live in the Firs estate in a 4-bedroom house and you've had a market appraisal with us previously. When you hit that website, it will read Lifecycle and everything about you in a blink of an eye, faster than the page even loads, and change the site based on the fact of what would appeal to somebody that's had a market appraisal that lives in the Firs estate in a 4-bedroom house. And if I hit the website and I've done an instant vow, for instance, but never a face-to-face vow, and I've got a 2-bedroom flat, it will change the site based on that and may say, if you've ever done an instant valuation, you might be better off having a face-to-face. At the moment, we're really looking for 2-bedroom flats, ideally in the Firs estate. And here's a guide to download for people that are looking to sell their house before Christmas. And I download it. It's all interconnected. Like Lifecycle knows, Neuron knows, which means which means you're busy working, and these tools are all working in the background, and suddenly you just get a notification on your phone. You might want to speak to Rob. He did an instant valuation 2 years ago, but he's just been on your website and downloaded that guide about selling before Christmas. He's got a 2-bed flat in the Firs estate. Life becomes a lot easier. So Neuron is a website company, but it is, again, without wanting to overuse the term, it's based around the artificial intelligence that it can gather because it's inside the Iceberg ecosystem and connects to the other products, i.e. Lifecycle and Uzair.
Because that comes quite interesting, just to deload all that. And this is where it comes into, you couldn't effectively get Neuron website without having something like Iceberg.
No.
And Neuron wouldn't work. It'd work like if you were to present it, half the stuff wouldn't be possible in there because you wouldn't be able to fill in those boxes. And hence why the suite of products are out there. It's not like a bit like some of the CRM providers in the past. We give you a free website if you take a page with us or take our CRM. And it's different to that because it's like that's just a hosting page for your properties.
They're unrelated.
Yeah, so it's not really intelligently working that out. And the same with the likes of some of the stuff that Uzair's been learning. Complements Neuron, complements Lifecycle.
Yeah, Uzair will learn from your website as well because it's all in the same ecosystem. If you've got a website with ABC company, Uzair can learn stuff that's going on inside Lifecycle to get cleverer, but it can't learn anything that's happening on your website. It can't learn anything about what gets clicks, what doesn't get clicks, what gets the most traction, what are the most popular things that get read, like how long people spend on what pages. You can't learn any of that. But when it's all in the same ecosystem, it can give you some really useful advice that you otherwise wouldn't have known. No one knows what that advice will be yet, but it will come out because all that information is being fed into the artificial intelligence. And
we've covered now Lifecycle. We've covered it in the last podcast. Uzair, Neuron, Estate CX.
Estate CX ultimately is a way of trying to help the industry understand a different way of working. That's not me banging on about a product. It's not you trying to convince people to buy those products. It's not really anything to do with buying a product from us. It's more to do with the learnings that we have been fortunate enough to experience over time about the difference between having a company that you're frustrated with, that you can't seem to get what you want out of, and building the business that you really want to build, and having access to the people that can give you the advice that you need in order to do that. Whether that is me, or whether that's you, or whether that's another estate agent that's done it, or whether it's somebody from outside of the industry that you just otherwise would never get to speak to or listen to. So that Estate Agency X incorporates our live events, where we bring in some of the top speakers from around the world, whether they be industry related or non-industry related. It covers our podcasts, where we do the same sort of thing. If you can't make it to an in-person event, then you can listen to podcasts if you're that type of person. It will cover workshops that we're going to run, more courses, online learning. And you might think to yourself like, well, there's some online training I can do, I don't know, with this estate agency company. This isn't how to be an estate agent. This is around the future of estate agency. This is around a different way of thinking. This is information that is more business related. Yes, of course, we'll put some courses in there for the staff for everyday estate agency. Why not? That's all really helpful stuff as well. But Estate Agency X is to take Lifecycle, to want to go on that journey. You can get carried away with some of the nice bells and whistles about it, but we can both say categorically, for it to be a success, you've got to want to change the way you work.
Mindset, yeah.
You've got to want to work a different way. Lifecycle is a different concept. And so if you want support around that, if you're convinced that you want to do it, you're going to need support. And to get that support, we've built the Estate Agency X community, whereby you get to hang out with other people that are also on that journey. And some of them are amazing at it, and they can tell you exactly how they did it. And some of them are just starting, and together you'll believe that you're able to do it because you're both trying to do it, rather than talking to people that just think you're mental.
I say that actually. I say to a lot of clients, when you go to particular events, you're going to find when you start to get to a particular level, you try and talk to people about stuff, they will look at you a bit blankly, like you're a lunatic. So I said, you just find the other Iceberg clients and you can talk to them about data and all sorts of stuff.
You can't just go to a group of random estate agents and talk about what you're trying to achieve with Lifecycle. You can't go to a group of random estate agents and say, I'm trying to figure out the best journeys for, like, when someone registers with us and they say they've got a house to sell that's in a specific estate. I'm trying to think of the best journey to put them on by email, through social media, so that they can maybe do some sort of trigger and my team will get notified about it, and that will happen in the background. You can't have that conversation with a random estate agent. They'll just go, what are you talking about? The fuck are you going? Yeah. What are you talking about?
Also, I also find it from a coaching perspective, it's what I love about what I do under Estate X is a lot of leaders can be quite lonely out there. So either you try and speak to your family at home, but like they're your family, they don't really have that part to it. And then you've got the awkwardness of trying to talk to your staff, but there's sometimes you might be just wanting to do something a bit different, but you don't want to talk to them about it in case they fear thinking, oh my God, what is he doing back to do now?
And they think you're supposed to have the answers anyway.
And so I always find with the coaching, it's a place where exploration of can happen, but you also have someone who is backing the champion of your corner that allows you to go, right, I can't, like, I was at an event last Friday and there was a guy there called Sir Terry Waite, and he was a leading humanitarian thing, and he was talking about change, and the fundamental thing he said was you can't expect change to happen in communities or anything like that unless you change yourself first. Has to come from you first, wanting to desire change. Then you can give the ability to change a community, change how a tribe works, how you change how a country works, how you change how the world works. But you see, it starts from the individuals wanting to do that. And that's the bit I always found exciting with Estate X and our community, is the fact that you've got people who are desiring actual change amongst themselves. Yeah. But rather than looking left to right and feeling a bit lonely, they've not only got people who want to see that desired change, but also a community of other people going, I've done that, and don't worry, it's going to be a bit shit for the beginning bit, but this is what's happened because I pierced that route. Not in the boot of other people going, don't do that because you don't really want to muddy the water. Stick to this process.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, as much as your friends and your family love you, like, they're protective over you and don't want you to go outside your comfort zone too much. That's not because they don't like you, just they're not maybe the best people to speak to. A lot of people that I've spoken to about my journey in the past would have heard me say, like, my life changed when I just hung out with different people. it wasn't that like, I don't know, I just walked down the street and hung out with some different people. I just tried to put myself in different places where the conversations were going to be conversations like that catered to what it was that I was trying to find out.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know that I was going to find the right people in this place, but I knew that I was more likely to find some guidance around business in a business networking mastermind or accelerator program than I was in the pub. You know, and I could talk about it in the pub, but it was kind of a waste of conversation. It just talking to a random person about something that if I went to a business accelerator, a lot of those were wasted conversations as well. I had a lot of conversations with people that were they're dreaming, but I'd also bump into somebody that without, you know, you'd look at and think nothing of, and it turns out they've built £4 billion businesses.
Yeah.
And they can tell you the answer to your problem.
Yeah.
And so, you know, environment dictates performance. It's getting to the right people. If you decide that you want to be in that world whereby maybe you don't quite understand it, but you can see that it's the way to go, then if you surround yourself with those people, pretty quickly you'll be in that world and it'll be working.
So last point on it. So Iceberg, you said obviously at the beginning originally it was Iceberg and that was Iceberg on its own, and then we've had Lifecycle and we've started to pull in all these other products. Like what does Iceberg Digital mean to you?
It's a funny one because when I set up Iceberg Digital, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I set up a company called Iceberg Ideas. If you ever look on Companies House, Iceberg Digital doesn't really exist. There is an Iceberg Digital, but it doesn't trade. The company is actually called Iceberg Ideas, and it trades as Iceberg Digital.
I mean, I did question that when I first joined.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people
is this guy with a glass wall and some random counter wall and he's Iceberg Ideas? Is that true?
Yeah. So I set up a company called Iceberg Ideas, and the reason was that I knew that there would be lots of things under it. So it was kind of like, well, it's like an iceberg, you know, you just see the tip and then it goes down for miles and miles. And then I set up Iceberg Digital. I started trading as Iceberg Digital because I had this idea around digital magazines. And I thought, and there could be an iceberg, whatever, estates. There could be an iceberg this, there could be an iceberg that, there could be. And Iceberg Digital was what we used, and then it just became like, that's the company now. But so when I look at it, I still look at it as this is the tip of the iceberg. Iceberg Digital is the bit above the water. There's this company that you can go to that will help you with your estate agency if you're open-minded. And if you then look under the water, these are all the things that you can do. You might want coaching. You know, you might want to be part of a networking group. You might want a software. You might want websites. You might want artificial intelligence. And that will just continue to expand. And it will naturally continue to expand because we will either partner with people that can use the information that we've managed to get together and we can use theirs, or we will make the products if no one else is willing to, and we'll expand the iceberg that way. But either way, it works because it's all in one ecosystem. So that's how I see it.
And what do you find the most exciting looking forward before we wrap up?
A lot of the stuff that we've done over the years, we've really had to work hard to convince people on why and how this is going to work for them in the future. Now I feel like we're starting to get to the stage where we can make the end user bit that's just really cool. Like, and if you're not into technology and you don't want to know about how data works and how this works and how that works, you just want this really cool thing on the end. We can do that now, and you don't have to question all the rest of it. So I'm quite excited about that, like, you know, the products that we'll start to be able to produce and the enhancement that we'll be able to make to our products will make more sense to somebody that doesn't really give a shit about technology. They'll just go, that's just super cool. I don't care how you do it. I just love the fact you can. That's the bit that excites me now.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to this Estate Agency X podcast. Can you make sure that you're actually subscribed to this podcast channel if you liked the content? It helps us massively to get better guests, and it just helps us generally. So you might think you're subscribed, but just have a double check whatever your podcast platform of preference is, that you're actually subscribed, and then that way we can continue to grow the channel and get better and better guests for you.